Welcome to Produce Talks.
This whole business is based on relationship and friendships.
Food is darn simple.
What can we do? What are other countries doing?
How important it is for industry to be talking about this.
We're going back to the farm. We're going back to the whole food.
Hello and welcome to Produce Talks, the CPMA podcast. This episode, we are switching gears a little bit away from COVID-19 and getting into Fairtrade certification and imports. We'll speak with Jennie Coleman, president of Equifruit, about the Fairtrade certification and their approach to sustainability. We'll also bring in Mimmo Franzone, director of Produce and Floral with Longo's, to talk about their Fairtrade banana program and the added value from their sustainability practices. But first, the 2020 CPMA New Product Showcase has gone virtual. Find over 50 of our industry's top new innovative products online at convention.cpma.ca. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at CPMA_SCDFL and like, retweet, and reply to us to let us know which products you think should be the winners in the Best New Product category, the Packaging Innovation category, the Organics category, and the newly named Snackable category. The winners will be announced on May 13th. And so we'll kick off this episode with Jennie Coleman, president of Equifruit. Welcome, Jennie.
Thank you, Ian. Happy to be here.
We've been talking about, doing this episode for a couple months, I think since February, but with the COVID-19 pandemic, that really threw a wrench into those plans. So it's great to finally chat.
Right, indeed.
As a banana importer, I'm really curious, how has this all impacted your sales and the sale of bananas generally?
Well, from what I've read, the sale of bananas generally has been still solid throughout the pandemic. I can speak specifically about Equifruit and say that our sales are way, way up. People seem to be craving, known items like bananas. I mean, I've seen more banana bread recipes on social media than I can count, just in my own private feed, not even in anything that Equifruit is following, which is, of course, always very banana intensive. But
That's true. That's true. Yeah. And I know my wife, she freezes a lot of our bananas, like if they're on the verge of going bad. And then we use those for banana bread. Actually, I think she might actually be making a loaf today.
Yeah. No, so we definitely see sales up. Obviously COVID-19 is a global pandemic. And so we are concerned, as should anyone working in a global supply chain, about the way this pandemic will affect their producers. What is life like in producing countries? And so we're keeping a careful eye on how our partners in Peru and Ecuador are doing, what rules are in place there. If there were restrictions on exports at origin, then obviously this is going to have an impact here in Canada. So far, so good, but it remains a risk.
Yeah. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about Equifruit and your sustainability practices?
Yeah, sure. So Equifruit is a Canadian company. We are the market leaders, the Canadian leaders in Fairtrade banana imports and marketing. We were founded in Quebec in 2006. The first container came in 2007 and took a little bit of time to get the market ready for a different type of banana. So it's still the Cavendish, but it's sold under different terms, under Fairtrade terms. Every container that Equifruit has imported has been certified by Fairtrade. This is really at the heart of what we do and informs our sustainability practices. We want to be sure that there's been fairness along the supply chain. So one of our slogans is fair from the start. And that refers, of course, to the fact that every container since 2007 has been fair trade, but also that we are thinking about the whole supply chain. We're thinking about the producers behind this fruit, this most consumed fruit in Canada, and we want to be sure that they are paid fairly and treated fairly. As the initial building block of the supply chain.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting you mentioned the supply chain. We recently did a study on labeling, and in our research, we asked consumers, what does fair trade mean to you? And there was sort of a mixed bag of responses, fair wages, fair working conditions, fair buyer relations. And about a quarter of the respondents said that they really didn't know, they couldn't really give an answer at all. So what is the framework and the standards for fair trade certification?
So I should say from the outset that there are kind of two versions of fair trade that people can think about. The first is fair trade in two words, fair trade, which really refers to the notion of justice in global trade relations, justice between producers generally in developing countries and buyers in developed countries. And when I talk about the framework for fair trade, then I'm talking about fair trade in one word, which refers to the global certification body, which is the most known, recognized fair trade certification in the world. And is sort of seen as the gold standard in fair trade certification. So from here on in, when I talk specifically about fair trade rules, I'm talking about fair trade one word, the certification program.
Right. Okay.
So fair trade certification is really about putting an ethical framework around normal commercial transaction. And by normal commercial transaction, I mean that when Equifruit wants to work with a producer group or import their fruit, of course, we have to be sure that the partners we're considering are good business people and that they have really quality fruit, that, nobody's going to buy fruit, no matter how fuzzy-wuzzy they feel, if the fruit is not of good quality. So that's really the first check that Equifruit has to make when we are vetting producers. But we are also vetting producers based on their adherence to these fair trade standards. And so under fair trade certification, there are standards which apply to buyers like Equifruit and to producers like the Equifruit's producer partners, the cooperatives that we work with. So if we look at what we as buyers are looking for, what we can expect from our producers, well, for them to have got fair trade certification, they need to have adhered to standards on three pillars of sustainability, the three pillars of sustainability: economic sustainability, social, and environmental. This means that they have to have paid fair wages to workers. They have to have provided occupational health and safety standards, making sure that there are things as basic as having toilets on farms so that workers can be comfortable while at work. Of course, that there's, if we look at social issues, that there's no child or forced labor, that workers are allowed to unionize, that there is gender equity, that there's freedom from discrimination. So those were economic and social issues. Now, fair trade is not an organic standard. It's not an environmental standard per se. It does certify products that are both organic and conventional. But on conventional production, there is a list of hazardous materials that are either forbidden or heavily restricted, for two reasons: for environmental reasons, but also for health and safety reasons for the workers on the plantation. There are studies about human and environmental toxicity, and fair trade wants to minimize the impact of both of those. So that would be part of the standards we would look for in producers.
Certainly sounds like there's a lot of components there.
Yeah, there are. And both buyers and sellers. So our producers are audited on these standards. Their audit process is a very long and complicated one because the standards are very complex. And back to the to the buyer side, what can a producer expect of Equifruit? Well, for us as buyers, the standards really center around price and the payment of a social premium. So if we talk about price, we as buyers have to respect what's called the Fairtrade minimum price, which is established by the standards unit at Fairtrade International in cooperation with producer groups on the ground who will look at essentially the profit and loss statement for these farms. Because remember, small farming is a business too. Yeah. We've got to make sure that part of that economic sustainability is that they are profitable, which has a huge ripple effect across their communities, not their families as small producers, but across their communities too. Mm-hmm. So they're going to look at their production model, and they are going to come up with what they call the cost of sustainable production. And this forms the Fairtrade minimum price. It is set by commodity and by country, because Fairtrade certification doesn't apply just to bananas, but to all sorts of other commodities. You've surely seen coffee or chocolate that's been Fairtrade certified.
Yeah, and I think like avocados, pineapples, those are starting to get more into the Canadian market as well. Yeah, exactly. So those same standards would apply to those items as well. Mm-hmm. So this Fairtrade minimum price, this is sort of like the starting point of negotiations, right? It's a floor price, which we as buyers will never go below, regardless of market dynamics. If the market price goes below, we continue to respect that Fairtrade minimum price. If the market price goes above, then producers have every right to negotiate their pricing upwards. So that's the first thing. That Fairtrade minimum price is a really important part of this mechanism, because it allows small producers to have income stability, to be able to invest in their farms when they know that there's a certain price that they are going to get for their production. Then they can go to the bank and say, we want to improve X part of our farm or Y. And the bank will say, okay, well, you're in long-term contracts with a buyer like Equifruit at these set prices. We'll give you a loan for your small business, which is, as any of us who have small businesses know, really critical to growth. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is that when they have these higher prices coming in, what it allows there to be a ripple effect. We work with cooperatives of small producers, but they are often hiring workers. This allows them to pay their workers, to know that they have the means to pay workers, and it frees up their own kids to go to school. Mm-hmm. Maybe those kids will come back to the farm and work, but at least they will have completed their education. There won't be child labor. So that's one component. And the second is what's called the Fairtrade social premium, which is an additional amount contributed by buyers to small producers, or if you work with a plantation setting, an amount that goes directly back to workers on those plantations, which can be used to improve, again, those three elements of sustainability: the economic stability, social or environmental stability of the community. We've visited lots of great projects, investments in schools, in local health centers. I'm sure that must be exceptionally rewarding for you as well. It's amazing. Yeah. It's great. When we visit our producers, there have been moments where we've been visiting projects which have developed thanks to that social premium. And we're kind of torn. On the one hand, we want to stay and learn everything we can about this project. And on the other, we're like, let's just
get back to Canada and start
Yeah,
selling more bananas.
Let's keep selling these bananas. Yeah.
We can keep selling. If we're going to have this kind of impact on the ground, then
Mhm.
really Equifruit's role in the supply chain is to be the sales and marketing arm for our producers who otherwise wouldn't have access to the Canadian export market.
Mhm. So I'm sure there must be some element to traceability in all this.
Yeah, of course. That is a part of the requirements under Fairtrade standards is very close traceability between, the farm and essentially the consumer. And so when we receive a container of bananas, we have a packing list for the containers where each case, each 900 of the 960 cases in each container is accounted for, is linked back to the small producer who grew them. And there is a code on the box which we follow that goes right back to the small producer. In Peru, the cooperative we work with, these are micro producers. Some of them have half a hectare or just a hectare of land. And yet we can go right back to that half hectare and find out who the producer is who's grown that fruit. Now, in terms of global trade, traceability is really important for food safety measures. But for Equifruit, it's also about remembering that there are people behind this fruit that we eat in Canada, this fruit that we take for granted. And that person has a story, that person has a family, and that family has, lived under fair trade and non-fair trade conditions, and will be able to tell you the impact of that purchase on their family and their community. It's really powerful.
Yeah, and that goes back to the social premium.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you sent me a couple pictures. There was a school that was built.
Yeah. Well, there are lots of uses. The social premium can be used for things that are important for global trade and for small producer stability, like improving the infrastructure of the cooperative itself. In Ecuador, part of the social premium was spent by the producer co-op on building their own warehouse where each small producer was bringing fruit from their plantation, to the central spot to have containers stuffed and sort of under their own terms so that they were able to respect phytosanitary standards, and do this in a timely manner. Whereas before they'd been renting space and they were getting kind of the short end of the stick, the evening shifts where their lights are on and bugs are out. And now they can control that better. And that is thanks to the fair trade premium. But there are also projects we've visited, investments in schools. In Ecuador, we visited 2 different schools for disabled children that have received social premium funding, which is really beautiful to see. And in Peru, we visited a school that had set up a music program thanks to social premium funding. We visited a clean water project in Peru, a rural health clinic that had set up a birthing center there so that mothers from the surrounding communities could have their children there and not have to go to a larger center to give birth. Yeah, the projects are almost unending, and it's really what motivates us. It makes us so passionate about what we do and keeps us so true to our values because we know that under this model we can have tremendous impact.
That's really great. Certainly sounds like you're being true to your mission and true to your name, which is fantastic. So we talked a little bit about pricing. So I think one of the important questions to unpack maybe, are consumers willing to pay more? And we'll bring Mimmo in to the conversation in a little bit. But what are your initial thoughts around that?
I think that we at Equifruit are trying to break down the myth that bananas will only sell on price. We think that there's more than one way to sell bananas, and that people are interested in sustainability as well. And people are interested in stories. People are interested in authenticity. And if you present a product that you can differentiate through certification, through a unique supplier, then our experience in every rollout that we've done is that people will accept, won't even question the higher price. We look at a lot of other commodities that people have bought on price, or that a segment of the population will buy on price. You know, milk or eggs or bread. There's Wonder Bread and there's cheap eggs and there's cheap milk. But there's also multi-grain, 12 grain, 16 grain, I don't know how many grain we can pack into it. Bread. There are eggs that are laid by free-run hens, omega-3 eggs. I saw a brand of eggs that markets a comfort farm eggs, where apparently eggs are coming from hens raised in furnished housing with perches and nesting areas.
Yeah.
I bought some of these. Trust me, they taste the same. And so I think that there's room in the produce department to think beyond price, that there are consumers out there who, the same way they would buy a comfort farm egg because they're worried about hen health, would surely be interested in bananas that have been produced under sustainable conditions by workers whose health and safety are protected and who are being paid fairly. It's sort of paternalistic to say that the entire market is only ever going to buy bananas on price to banana purchasing.
Yeah, no, I think there's always going to be a small contingent of, individuals, whether it's going to be based on something like organics or pesticide-free, fair trade, some sort of variety that can be offered, where a consumer, there's going to be a small contingent of people that are going to say, yeah, I want that, and I'm willing to pay more.
I should add here that Equifruit has sold bananas which are both Fairtrade certified and organic certified, but the organic certification is a separate certification from Fairtrade.
Yeah, so that's it's in addition to, I guess.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, no, it's great to learn more about what Fairtrade certification is, what Fairtrade is. Let's take a quick break with a word from our sponsor, Nature Fresh Farms. After the break, we'll bring Mimmo Franzone, Director of Produce and Floral, into the conversation to talk about your program with Longos and how that's going.
It's Matt Quiring here with Nature Fresh Farms. There's lots of fresh news to share with our industry partners and consumers. One of the best ways that we keep everyone up to date on greenhouse affairs is through social media. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn to see stories highlighting our new plants, recipe ideas, dedicated team members, and educational events.
Okay, so now we're going to bring in Mimmo Franzone from Longo Brothers Fruit Markets to talk about the program between Equifruit and Longos. Welcome, Mimmo.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Good. Certainly, we talked about a little bit how it's almost nice to switch gears away from COVID-19. Talk about something other than that for once.
Right.
So talking about Fairtrade certification, talking about the program with Equifruit, why was it important for Longos, to partner with Equifruit as a supplier?
The original conversation probably started 3+ years ago. Jennie's team approached Longo's with this opportunity, and just like any opportunity, you have a couple questions and some fears about change, but we listened. That's for sure. We listened a few times, and then we slowly rolled out a test in a few stores. Our smaller, we call them our market stores. They're branded The Market by Longo's. They're smaller formats, all in the downtown core. So we just felt that the target market would understand this program better than most. So we started the test, and with the help with the Equifruit team, there was a ton of educational demos. So we demoed the fruit, and we also spoke to our guests about the program and all the details behind it and Fairtrade itself. So that really helped us establish sort of the groundwork behind the complete launch to our entire network, call it three years later. So we just felt that it was the right thing for our guests, and we just wanted to take it slowly and not jump into the fire right away. Because as a conventional retailer, to move a program from, call it conventional organic bananas to a fair trade organic banana was a very big step. So we took our time, and it worked out in the end.
That's great. We talked a little bit about it earlier, where a lot of consumers aren't quite clear on what fair trade means, and talking about the wage component and working conditions. There's a lot of components to that. So I think that education piece is certainly was a great idea. It sounds like. Yeah, definitely. Then the other large piece to the puzzle, I guess, is price. And you had mentioned, you'd rolled it out to as a test initially in some key markets in Toronto. Did you find that customers are, willing to pay more for that fair trade certification?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. The long answer is we strategically launched in that market because, our stores are in the path system. For those who are familiar with Toronto, there's an underground path system, connects all the major buildings. So that the demographic is a little different. Based on volumes, it looks like they're all eating a banana a day, which is great. But it was less sensitive to launch there when you're looking at a price increase of roughly 20 to 30%. But again, the big piece behind it all was the education to our guests and the marketing components. We did a ton of work on social initially, and then as we launched company-wide, we did more social, back-to-back flyers in our bi-weekly circular. We also did a 2-page spread in our quarterly magazine. So again, if you don't have all those components, it's tough to launch an initiative this big. But it all worked out in the end. And then price really becomes secondary because you have a story behind it. You have the sustainability and corporate social, practices behind it, et cetera. So, it does become secondary.
And have you tried it in more suburban markets since?
So we've mid-February, we launched organic fair trade bananas company-wide. It's been extremely successful. The growth rate, both on the sales front and the tonnage front, are tremendous compared to last year.
Well, it certainly sounds like you're doing great work there, Jennie.
Well, we have great partners in Longo's, and what we've really loved about working with Longo's is working with a family business who have thought about this in terms of what what would they do for their family? What would you do for your family? And they get that. They get this story that we've been telling. They get the connection to small producers. I think they've also seen that we're able to deliver not just a good story, but a quality product. And when you have someone like Mimmo and his team who are enthusiastic about the program, who see the value in sustainability, it's just a pleasure to work with them. And this, what Mimmo has referred to, this conversation, but also this training is really important. It's important for everyone in the Longo's organization, from the executive team down to the produce clerks, to understand what's behind this decision on their part to make a switch to a more expensive product, but based on a values call. And I think that these, show and sells and internal management training and also putting together material for produce level clerks so that they're able to answer guest questions about the program. I think that's been really, really key to the success of this rollout. You're presenting a united front, and everybody knows why you're doing this. It's just been a delight.
So Mimmo, talking more generally about sustainability, is there anything else that Longo's has really focused on?
Yeah, we've always been strong believers around sustainable practices or just sustainability in general. And we've been the entire team here at Longo's has been working hard on publishing our first sustainability report, and it's going to be distributed to the public. It'll be posted online. As a private company, a lot of times we keep data and information to ourselves, but we feel that the work that we're doing, our guests and our partners should know. So it's sort of the backbone of the report. There's three pillars that we're looking at: environmental stewardship, responsible sourcing, and healthy, happy people. So those are the three pillars. And I think this program in general hits all three pillars, right. More so on the responsible sourcing piece and on the healthy, happy people. And when we're talking healthy, happy people, it's our team members, our guests, our vendor community, and just communities abroad, whether they be our local communities who shop our stores, or the communities that live off of what our vendor partners are doing, and in this case, Equifruit and their producers. So it's a great tie-in, and once that comes out, we'll be sharing, sort of what we're social premium monies we're giving back through this program, and it's going to be amazing to share the story with our guests and our vendors and our communities themselves.
That's great. I'll have to
it's lovely.
Keep an eye out for it. So I'd also be curious to know, talking about the new normal, I'd be curious to know how sales are going online as well with Equifruit bananas and for Longo's generally across Grocery Gateway.
Yeah, so speak to Grocery Gateway, also to our brick and mortar stores. So ran some data pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. So the growth, we haven't seen a decrease in the growth rate, which is fantastic, because we've made some decisions to cut out assortment to simplify the shop. We don't want to be in the forefront of price gouging, so we've invested margin as well. So we're trying to hold off increasing retails. And when you look at the organic banana program, from last year to this year, like I said, there's a 20-30% increase. The guests they understand the program, and they are still purchasing the same amount as they were pre-pandemic. So it goes to show that the work that was done leading up to the launch of the program is really paying off because, when COVID-19 became really serious, consumers' buying habits have changed, and this program has not changed. So it's great. It's great to see that for sure.
That's good. Again, going back to education.
Yeah, can I just jump in and add to what Mimmo has said about Grocery Gateway? There was also a separate launch planned on Grocery Gateway to highlight the switch to Fairtrade organic bananas. So at the launch, the landing page for Grocery Gateway talked about the switch. There was, I've forgotten the technical term, I think it's a carousel, meaning that all Fairtrade goods were highlighted together. If you like Fairtrade banana, how about you look at our Fairtrade coffee or our Fairtrade chocolate as well.
Nice.
And and so there were two channels of communication there for in-store guests, but also Grocery Gateway guests as well. I'm sure that's had an impact.
Yeah, definitely. Again, it ties all back to, we took our time with the launch and, checked all the boxes before we rolled out and made sure that we were completely ready for the switchover.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Mimmo and Jennie, for hopping on. Really great conversation, really great insight about Fairtrade certification and the benefits and consumer insights. So hope you both, stay safe. Thanks again. Great to have you on.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Mimmo.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks, everyone, and be safe.
Be safe.
A reminder about the 2020 CPMA New Product Showcase, which has gone virtual. Find over 50 of our industry's top new innovative products online at convention.cpma.ca. And be sure to follow us on Twitter to let us know which products you think should be the winners. Until next time, fill half your plate with fruits and veggies, continue to seek out new knowledge, and basically never stop growing.